I was in a band called Junior's Eyes, and the leader of the group was a chap called Mick Wayne, who'd been kind of fairly well established, done a few session jobs here and there, and he got called in to play electric guitar on Space Oddity. And Mick did the session. I remember him coming back and saying how he had done this great session, and it was really exciting and everything, and David Bowie and everything. And basically, at the time, David was looking around to do some live performance, I think as a sort of a tryout, because he hadn't really, as far as I was aware, didn't have a band to kind of play with him, and was looking around for a group, and Junior's Eyes was suggested as the fact that it was Mick's band really. And so the band was sort of promptly hauled into the studio. That was the Trident Studios in St Anne's Court to cut some tracks with him. It was kind of an odd mixture of stuff, and I think David at the time was very involved with a local folk club that he virtually ran, as far as I can gather, in Beckenham, and he was very involved with the running of it. And so there was this kind of mixture of folk influences in there, and a whole lot of other stuff as well. It was quite, I think people basically didn't really know what to make of David at the time. He was he'd come from this, slightly theatrical background. He'd done his mime thing with Lindsay Kemp and stuff, and studied that. And then he'd also had his kind of Anthony Newley phase of the Laughing Gnome. And so I think he probably he hadn't sort of found his niche at that point. And so there was kind of a varied assortment of material there. It's quite a mixed sort of batch of stuff. Tony was basically producing the sessions that we did, the main stage. Gus just did the Space Oddity track. I don't believe he even did the B-side. I think it was just that one song that Gus did. I sort of got the impression that David was quite nervous and quite sort of highly strung, especially in the early sort of days, and I'm sure having Tony around there to sort of reassure him and keep things, calm and, create a nice atmosphere to work in, which is a big part of production anyway, isn't it, really? Tony was pretty much starting up as a producer in his own right, and I think he was also an arranger, but he was sort of emerging as a sort of talent, so everyone was kind of finding their feet, and I think probably everyone felt that there was no distinct direction there that was obvious, so it was kind of definitely a suck it and see kind of thing, I don't think there was I don't think people were sort of thinking, right, let's make a rock star out of David or anything like that, It was really building an album around the fact that the track Space Oddity had caused such a lot of interest, and it's kind of a very unusual song, and caught people's imagination.
Ground control to Major Tom.
I remember he was very much getting over the death of his father, because I remember on one occasion he was doing a vocal overdub, and he sort of broke down in the middle of it, and he was obviously feeling, a very sensitive guy, but he was going through some changes there.
Control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on.
He hadn't really had much experience fronting a band, and so the idea was that it was suggested that we did this sort of mini tour with him, which was actually 5 or 6 dates in Scotland. And so we sort of went up there. I think I was about 20 at the time, so it was all sort of young chaps having a laugh, and nutty. I mean, there was one gig where I think it was the one in Glasgow, the Electric Garden in Glasgow, where the promoter erected a cage in front of the band, because he said that sometimes if the crowd liked the band, they threw bottles. So we wondered what they did when the crowd didn't like the band. So that was kind of interesting. We'd had a lot of experience on the road. That was our main strength really with Junior's Eyes, is we just played all over the place, and we did all kinds of things, from the Star Club in Hamburg to whatever, just all over Europe, up and down the country, universities and everything. And that was the one thing that David didn't have, was that sort of confidence of playing sort of spit and sawdust gigs, really. So I suppose that, we just kind of carried it off without too much thought, I think. But I think David was quite nervous. It was a very alien atmosphere for him, really. Our very last gig as Julia's Eyes was at the Marquee Club, and we supported David Bowie, and most of the band got up and played with David after we'd played a set, and that was called The Hype. It went on to the name of The Hype. But in actual fact, it was the only gig we ever did with that lineup, and that was John Cambridge on drums and myself on guitar, Tony Visconti on bass, and David on rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar, and vocals, obviously. And subsequently, several people kind of sort of said, "Oh, you played with The Hype, didn't you?" And I said, "No, I'd never heard of them." "What was that?" "Oh, David Bowie." No. But that was the only time that actually occurred. That was at the Marquee Club. And after that, David sort of linked up with Mick Ronson, who he'd got to hear about through. He's a very good friend of John Cambridge, the drummer. They're both from Hull. They both played in a group called the Rats. And so that's how that kind of link-up happened. So, and Mick kind of got involved. And to start with, Tony Visconti carried on playing bass, I think dressed as Superman or something. I think he... Yes, extraordinary.